Thank you for the introduction, and I also thank Afke for her introduction, because I will continue with timelines. I would like to present you the conservation of manuscripts at the Austrian National Library, also on a timeline from 1914 to 2023. Looking back in the development of conservation, I want to introduce you to two conservators that have so far not been in the spotlight. Started to work as the first book conservator for the library. As freelance, during extensive travels after his apprenticeship, he worked with different bookbinders and book conservators, like, for instance, Paul Adam. Between 1914 and 1939, Alois Liska mainly treated manuscripts and rare books at the court library, which became the Austrian National Library. He recorded his treatments in a journal. Another important personality for the development of manuscript conservation at our library was Hilde Kuhn. During the National Socialist regime, the young woman, member of a Catholic group, was accused of high treason and served a prison sentence. During bombardment of Vienna, she could escape in 1945. Hilde Kuhn started to work at the library in the same year. General Director Josef Bick had the vision of establishing a conservation department with well-trained conservators. Hilde Kuhn's enthusiasm for books met with the ideas of Josef Bick. With his help, she could train in bookbinding in Vienna and later in book conservation at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in Paris. Hilde Kuhn started to develop the conservation department after World War II. She was joined by Otto Wächter, whom you've already heard of, in the early 1950s. Otto Wächter became head of the department in 1957 and established training in paper conservation at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn were both dedicated conservators that overcame difficult circumstances and left a legacy at our library. Today, we are a team of 11 conservators with Wolfgang Kreuzer as head of book conservation. We are working for the different collections of the Austrian National Library, among which the collection of manuscripts and rare books forms the core. Although we have not met Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn, we have discovered connections. When I regard the manuscripts that they have treated, I'm impressed by their respectful attitude and their sensitive approach. They seem to speak through their work. Recently, Theresia Burgheiser researched on the life and professional development of both our predecessors. You can find information on the results in 2 blogs in German on our website. We were lucky to meet with their relatives, the great-niece of Alois Liska and the children of Hilde Kuhn. Today, I want to present you our work for the manuscript collection with examples from preservation, conservation, and research. I will conclude with common themes that we discovered since 1914. Probably in the 1920s and 1930s, Alois Liska and his assistant Johann Spiegel made custom-sized dust jackets for all manuscripts. They used the material available in the scarce times after World War I, groundwood paper. The design was simple but efficient. Jackets with flaps that protected the binding and covered the edges with a very precise cut. About 100 years later, in 2020, we finished exchanging all dust jackets against new ones made of archival quality paper for all manuscripts acquired before 1870 and all special holdings. The illuminated manuscripts and other selected ones were in addition stored in archival boxes custom made from corrugated board. Manuscripts with textile bindings receive a special designed box and an adapted dust jacket made from unbuffered paper. The rehousing included a condition assessment of these 21,279 manuscripts. We stayed with the same design of dust jackets, but used higher quality paper. The exchange lowered the rate of volatile organic compounds and the dust level in the stacks. During World War II, the manuscripts were stored in the basements of the library and some of them in salt mines. The monitoring that we have implemented includes control of insects, microorganisms, dust, and climate. Part of the collection remains in the historic stacks. The most valuable manuscripts are stored in fully climatized, high-security rooms underground. Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn started their work in difficult times with lack of resources. We are more fortunate, but still struggle with limited funds. This forces us to make compromises and find solutions that work within historic building structures with limited space. We try to keep all manuscripts acquisitions before and after 1870 as stable as possible. Conservation projects focus on specific holdings. Jait Karadana could complete the conservation of damaged Oriental manuscripts with high priority. As an example, you see one folio of the 13th century Theriac book, Codex EF10. We assess the condition of manuscripts that are requested for digitization, exhibits, and lawns. We make treatments that are possible within the respective timeline. The aim of these interventions is to stabilize the book and to ensure the safe return. We record the need for more intensive treatments in our conservation database. In the yearly planning with the collection of manuscripts and rare books, we discuss the priorities for conservation and plan projects. One ongoing project is to control and, if necessary, the consolidation of miniatures in illuminated manuscripts. In the slide, you see a 13th century homage to King Robert of Naples, in which detached paint layers and gilding were consolidated with isinglass glue. Another project is the conservation of codices with endangered original bindings, based on our assessment during rehousing. The aim of treatments is to stabilize the book structure and to make access in the reading room or digitization possible. One example is a parchment manuscript from the 14th century, the Golden Legend of Jacobus de Varenne. The large losses of the leather cover reveal the structure of the binding and the book block. Loose squires made the manuscript unstable. Agnes Adam tried to stabilize the codex while preserving the original structure. The broken leather headband was secured with a thread. Agnes Adam partially resewed the book block so that loose squires were again fixed. Detached parts of the leather cover were glued with rice starch paste to the boards. Losses in the leather were not compensated. In collaboration with the textile conservator Sylvia Zechmeister, Sabrina B. tries to find solutions for the treatment of silk and velvet bindings, some of them with embroideries, as for example, the 16th century treatise on pikes dedicated to Emperor Maximilian II. Approaches of textile and book conservation are combined to preserve the delicate covers. Sylvia Zechmeister teaches us to dye textiles and threads for infills. The black velvet of the cover had been colored with an iron gall ink complex that deteriorated the silk fibers. On the back, the velvet was mostly missing. It was infilled with a black dyed linen. The so-called Black Prayer book, Codex 1856, is an example of a manuscript which has been treated by Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn and is still a challenge for us. Please excuse that I change from the challenge of green copper pigments, as mentioned in the abstract, to the challenge of black-dyed parchment. The Book of Hours of Galeazzo Maria Sforza, the 5th Duke of Milan, was created in the second half of the 15th century in Burgundy, probably in Bruges. The thin parchment folios were dyed black with an iron gall ink complex. The scribes wrote the text in gold and silver inks on the black background, a contrast that appealed to the tastes of the Dukes of Burgundy, Philip the Good and Charles the Bold. Rich illuminations illustrate the calendar and the liturgy of the hours. Unfortunately, the iron gall ink complex severely degraded the thin parchment folios. For this reason, probably Alois Liska unbound the book in the late 1920s. The original red velvet cover was preserved separately. Alois Liska stabilized tears and losses in the parchment with black-dyed silk gauze. He mended tears with bridges of silk gauze and possibly gelatin. Large missing areas were infilled or lined with silk gauze. General Director Josef Karabacek met and corresponded with Father Franz Erle, the director of the Vatican Library in the early 20th century. On the advice of Father Franz Erle, silk gauze was ordered from Lyon in France. We have several examples of manuscripts that Alois Liska treated with silk gauze and gelatin. In most cases, he used the reinforcements locally. The bifolios of the Black Hours with miniatures were stored between two sheets of glass plates. All other bifolios were put in paper folders. In 1975, almost at the end of her career at the Austrian National Library, Hilde Kuhn undertook a second treatment of the Black Hours. At that time, investigations by Gerhard Banig, Manfred Schreiner, Anna Habertitzel, and Heribert Stachelberger detected high levels of iron and copper ions in the parchment. Scanning electron microscope images revealed the severe degradation of the collagen fibers. Hilde Kuhn and Otto Wächter used parchment glue to consolidate parchment like on the 6th century Vienna Dioscorides. Humidified parchment folios were dried stretched in a frame. In her report on the treatment of the Black Hours, Hilde Kuhn writes that a treatment with parchment glue like any other human treatment was impossible. The parchment folios were deacidified with ammonia gas. Hilde Kuhn mounted all 154 folios between sheets of polyacrylate. One sheet was drilled with little holes to allow air exchange. The folios were stored vertically in compartmentalized wooden cabinets. I'm sorry. In 2023, we make a new attempt to find a solution for the stabilization of the extremely fragile folios of the Black Hours. In a first step, we investigate the materials, parchment, black dye, inks, and pigments, to better understand the degradation mechanism and the needs of the different components. For the material analysis, we collaborate with the Academy of Fine Arts, the Technical University Vienna, and numerous international colleagues that generously offered their support. Seraphidiment identified calf parchment by protein analysis on a sample from the Black Hours. SEM-ADX analysis at the Technical University confirmed the presence of iron and copper in a parchment sample from the Black Hours. In comparison with new calf parchment and undyed 5th century calf parchment in good condition, SEM imaging showed the stronger degradation of collagen fibers from the Black Hours. A comparison of these three samples in the light microscope confirmed these results. Instead of fibers, mostly melted lumps can be seen on the sample from Codex 1856. With XRF scans on folio 94, Urso, Dubravka Jembrich-Simbürger from the Academy of Fine Arts detected high amounts of iron and copper and minor amounts of zinc and potassium in the black parchment. The images of XRF scans mark the distribution of the elements silver, chlorine, iron, copper, zinc, gold, calcium, and sulfur. Red indicates high intensities, yellow and green medium, and blue low intensities. And in the middle row, you see the results of iron, copper, and zinc. The silver contains pure silver without other elements that would indicate an alloy. Chlorine was detected in areas of silver, which indicates chlorine-containing silver corrosion products. In the whole manuscript, we observe a general stable condition of the silver inks with some surface corrosion. The gold ink was made of pure, high-quality gold and is in very good condition. Presumably, the inks were made from powdered gold and powdered silver leaves. Initials were highlighted by gold leaf gilding on a ground of gypsum, as confirmed by the detection of calcium and sulfur. And here you see a detail of folio 94 and in normal and raking light where you can see the ground for the gold leaf gilding. We would like to explore how we can mechanically stabilize the fragile parchment folios without interfering with inks and pigments. We want to investigate if the polyacrylate sheets can be exchanged against air-permeable paper mounts that might include antioxidants. Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn attempted to conserve the black hours with the methods and materials available at their times. In their treatments, we observe respect for the original. They abstained from infillings or retouching that would have changed the appearance. They stopped treatments that proved to be detrimental. We take up the challenge to preserve the black hours. Can we discover common themes in our timeline since 1914, the starting point of in-house conservation of manuscripts? One obvious theme is the lack of space and resources. Sorry, go back. Yeah. A lack of space and resources are circumstances that accompany the history of the library since its beginnings. Today, we have better conditions than Johann Spiegel, the assistant of Alois Liska, whom you see working in the first room of the manuscript collection near the window. Still, limited resources compel us to find practical solutions, to improvise, and to set priorities. One of the major assets since 1914 has been and still is the work of dedicated conservators. Only with a team of creative and highly motivated conservators can we accomplish our multiple tasks. When we look at Alois Liska's records, we wonder how he could read so many books. Hilde Kuhn was a single mother of 3 children that worked 48 hours a week during most of her career. Another continuum in this timeline is the use of natural adhesives. Alois Liska worked with wheat starch paste, gelatin, and other protein glues. Hilde Kuhn and Otto Wächter refused to use soluble nylon on the 6th century Vienna Dioscorides as recommended by Plenderleith and Cormans in 1960. Wheat starch paste, gelatin, and parchment glue were the preferred adhesives. Cellulose ethers, methylcellulose, and hydroxypropyl cellulose were the only synthetic adhesives used on a regular base. I remember the large containers of methylcellulose and Closale when I started to work at the library. In former times, cellulose ethers had to be ordered in large industrial quantities. We still mostly use wheat starch paste, protein adhesives, and cellulose ethers. In case of water-sensitive media, like iron gall ink or silver ink, we prepare remoistenable tissues coated with gelatin or Closale G. The coating can be activated by humid plotters or plotters exposed to ethanol. In the first half of the 20th century, the general directors Josef Karabacek, Josef Donaubaum, and Josef Bick saw the need to conserve manuscripts in a professional way. This was the starting point for the conservation department at the Austrian National Library. The care and conservation of manuscripts and rare books continues to constitute one of our core tasks. This includes a close cooperation with the collection. The enlargement of the library and its changing functions shifted our position as conservation department. In 1969, 8 out of 100 full-time employees were conservators. In 2023, 9 full-time equivalents out of 304 are conservators. Our ties with the collection of manuscripts and rare books are still close and important. The new head of the collection, Katharina Kaska, understands the needs of collection care. The process of decision-making has changed as new challenges arise and new means of investigation develop. Looking at the work of our predecessors, it appears that decisions were made with the artwork in focus. In the treatments of Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn, we discover respect for manuscripts and their authenticity. We continue to strive for the best possible care of manuscripts so that they may last many more years and centuries to come ad multos annos. I would like to close with a quote by Václav Havel, the Czech author, dissident, and president. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. This hope guided Alois Liska and Hilde Kuhn, and it keeps us going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christa. Any questions?
Is this on? Yeah, there we go. Christa, I was just curious, can you tell me a little bit more about the black document? It seemed from the pictures that the perimeter, the margins, were where there was loss and deterioration. Where there was gold and silver ink, I didn't see any indications of holes or damage there. Is there an explanation maybe for that? And second question is, the silver ink that was used, has it oxidized and gone black in any of the places, like you would normally expect of a silver material?
I start with the last question. No, I was also surprised, and first we thought that it's not a real silver ink. There is only, as you may have seen in one of the slides, some slight corrosion, but it has not gone black. It's in really good condition, as well as the gold ink. And the bifolios with only text are in better condition than the folios with miniatures that obviously were more exposed or more looked at and handled. So in the folios with miniatures, there is also losses and tears in the miniatures.